Give it a try. All right, let's get inside the try. It's next to this station. Is it hide by you? Well, we're really good. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows this.
Maybe.
If we don't know what's going on, nobody else can.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, different energy. Yeah.
Very different.
Right,
Wow. Feel the sound really quick.
right,
Because we usually have people.
right. And then we're kind of, everybody's sort of like, anticipating, and then we're like, ah,
Yeah, then
we have an audience,
start with that funny like, ha, nice to see you.
All right.
Didn't catch you there.
But either, oh, hey, look at that there. There's an audience.
We're drinking this raw pour. I don't know the specs of it. I guess I could have looked that up. It's quite green. Raw pour, young raw pour. Comes from West China Tea, and it's a tea from our tea club, but it's from several months back. And it's just so good.
Is this the one that I have? Or is it different?
Impossible, but my goodness, that smell that you get, it's rich apricot notes. At least that's how my nose works.
Yeah. It smells a lot.
Yeah, stony fruity. Okay, so we'll have that. And if you want to try it too, you just join our tea club. Every month we send out brand new flavors, fresh for each season. Currently, we're partnering with West China Tea, our friends over in Austin, Texas. That's where Matt Lucas is.
Yeah, he's up there with his brother. Yeah, I like this. This is like, it's almost like more conversational. When G was like, gosh, kind of feels like that, where it's just like us just having a conversation. Yeah,
But yeah, it's really evolved. So we were talking about how at first it was just you and me over Zoom.
Yeah.
And then we start to have people, and then audio became an issue.
Right.
So then I started investing in mics.
Right. Cameras.
Right. And then we got the multicam set up. And then when we got the multicam set up, we needed a producer.
Yeah.
So then it started becoming production.
Right. Getting people in and like tinkering and tweaking the system.
Because it was all live too, we had a deadline.
Right. We had to start at 7. People were gonna be there. Yeah. And then we could track like how many people showed up.
Yeah.
Answer questions.
And then I had a Wednesday class right before it.
Right. So you were like
stammer time. And yet for 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so now it feels like, it feels like a return to simplicity in some ways, which I think is a good idea when it comes to engaging with someone. It's like, wow, it's returning to simplicity.
You know what? There's a cheat
All right.
But speaking of returning to simplicity, there's a qigong where the idea of immortality of Taoism, say, return to spring. So that return to spring, it's almost like reversing the clock, and coming back that time.
Like a day down.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Lao Tzu, can be like a baby, right? So it's like return to spring, return to that youth. Right. And so there's practices that do that. But when you said return to simplicity, the thing of these practices, it's nothing more than just stand. And so to that point of standing simply, you could also do it seated. So we'll just sit right at the edge of our seat.
Yep.
My teacher says like sitting at attention, like between the poo-poo and the pee-pee. And for the hands, just let them rest comfortably on your thighs. They kind of cup your knees really well, but wherever your hands feel nice on your thighs, just let them rest. Back straight, shoulders down, neck long, ginger smile. And just sit. And I mean, this makes for really boring TV. But the experience, boys and girls, if you're doing it with us at home.
Well, and it makes me think about like, you know, one of the. So Ming was obviously adopted by the Liu family in Taiwan, and they had a series of practices that were part of the transmission that was given to Ming, and where he was teaching from. So he conveyed some of those things. One of those is the practice of the soul, like the sitting and forgetting. And that's exactly one of the places in postures. What we just did was soul, like you might modify it a little bit in terms of where your hand placement is, and like what you're doing, like with your tongue in your mouth, and where your gaze is going. But essentially the same sort of practice. And to sit and forget is to basically be able to reside in transition between being and doing.
Yeah.
We talked about this last month.
Yeah.
Right. So like to sit in that place, in the spaciousness between being and doing. And so what I got out of that particular qigong, very similar, you know, just sit, just sit.
Yeah. And all too often, you know, especially in our day and age with these apps that tell us how to meditate, count our breaths for us, and just us. All right, what's the technique? What's the method? What's, you know, what's the goal? What's the aim? What's the outcome? It's no, just sit.
Well, that's a very non-conceptual approach, right? And that's the tradition of like the Xian Dao or the Taoist perspective is basically deconstruct, just deconstruct whatever comes up in the spaciousness that you're existing, like you just deconstruct it and allow it to go back to being just evaporate on its own, because the assumption is that everything that comes up will self-resolve. So if you have being, which is self-arising, and doing, which is self-resolving. So anything that goes into movement, into doing space, including the things that you're thinking about. Like you think that, like, oh, just sitting here thinking, it's all movement. It's all an attempt to be in a place of doing. And if you just wait, there it goes. And that's the practice, right? Is to sit and to recognize that whatever being or whatever doing that's coming out of the inspired place of being is more than happy to disappear again. Like it comes up, it leaves as fast as it comes up. If you're available for that, if you don't continue to keep trying to do.
Human doing. Bet. Well, not bad, right? For the unknown raw poor. I know it's just
The unknown raw poor.
Oh, nice snow.
Nice. It's very subtle.
Yeah, I wish I could hold that up to you.
Yeah, smell this.
Smell that, boys and girls?
Smell-o-vision.
In time, well, we have what, horse moon we're at now?
We're in the
full.
Yep, we're in the middle of the horse moon.
And it's a dragon, and I understand the horse to be the dragon of the land. And dragon of the sky here, dragon of the land. Have you heard that before? Horses?
The dragon of the land. Yeah, I mean, in some respects, depending on the elemental configuration of the horse, it could be called and thought of as a dragon, or think of themselves as a dragon. Like when I do consultations with earth horses, for instance.
You ain't no dragon.
You ain't no dragon. You can run fast, but you ain't no dragon. Like you stallion, but you can't get off the ground. You know, like you might like, you know, get a little elevated if you go fast enough, but it's not the same thing as walking.
Take it easy.
Take it easy. So, just from, breaking down the cosmology of the horse, it is, the element of fire. Right, and it is the second moon of summer. The first moon of summer was a snake, that was a yin fire. The second moon of summer is a yang fire, which is the horse. And it is the sort of apex of Yang's development. The process that was started deep in the bosom of yin, right? Coincidentally enough, 6 moons ago in the rat is where you get this little bit of fire, like out of the darkness of yin. And so now it's in fullness, the roles have reversed. So all around is this bright white light in this activated, incredibly stimulated environment for movement. Like all action is deeply encouraged and stimulated, instigated, lots of instigation. And the roles are reversed in the sense that yin is now inside, right? Basically posing as our resources, or maybe our conscience, like a little Jiminy Cricket. It's like, oh, you should slow down there, you know. Okay. So there's an idea around that just as in the middle of winter, we're always encouraging people to, like, you know, stimulate your fire, like move, circulate, but don't let it out, right? Then essentially what's available now is the roles are reversed. So we want to preserve, even conserve yin, right? Instead of like just expending all of our resources, we want to be able to hold on to a little bit of that and not like go straight into exhaustion, hit the wall, so to speak. So there's a yin intelligence and a yang intelligence, and they complement each other. And so yin intelligence now is for seasonal sort of forcefulness of fire, to do anything other than be destructive, it has to mature. And in the maturation that is cultivated through the spring and early summer is basically severely tested now, because the environment's like very encouraging. Get out there and multitask, do all the things you need to do. Now's the time, you know, it's like very American. So it's of course, is the American moon. So it's, you know, it's put up or shut up, you know, like get it done, get her done.
100%.
So that's everything you can imagine, like the American attitude, that is the horse moon.
Here's to our horses getting it done.
Out there too busy. So it's potentially dangerous pivot, because if you are not bringing maturity to Yang's development, and if you're not demonstrating maturity now in the 5th moon, it could be disastrous. You could definitely be depleting your resources and continuing to push yourself forward. So if you're kind of feeling exhausted right now, it's a little bit of a red flag. You should probably pull back instead of like stimulating yourself to go further and farther, right? Right, to continue, make sure you're nourished, you know, make sure you're rested, because insomnia like is peaks during this time of year, because like you don't get dark till late, you know, and it's very hard to kind of calm down, settle down, actually get like the deep sleep to get that rejuvenation involved, right? So naps are a good idea. Wow, that reminds me of my time training in the temple. By the time I had got towards the end of the time there, got really weak. It's because I was a dogmatic vegan, you know, fused right.
Animal protein, and living out in the harsh conditions of the mountain with all the extreme training through all the seasons. By the time I got to 3rd, 4th year, I was, you know, look at these pictures of me, and I had my 6-pack, and I looked all cut and sharp. No, I was depleted. I had alopecia, vision was blurry, I had brain fog, and all I could tell myself was train harder, train harder, train harder. It's not finished. Pushed myself now to the point of organ depletion. And so, shout out John Coco. All these people are like, eat meat.
It's funny how they let you do that though. They're just watching you. He's gonna come around.
Eat meat. I'm like, nah. And then Coco said, eat this mushroom. Like that. And then Ming said, just eat a pork chop.
Right.
I trusted Ming.
Have some Momo. Yeah.
And then, so
And like that.
instantly.
Yeah. Fully rejuvenated.
This is what I've been doing.
Yeah. I had a really interesting, reminds me of an interesting experience that I had when I was in Alaska. I had the opportunity to be basically completely off grid, about 100 miles north of the Arctic Circle, in this like completely untouched backwoods pristine area with like cabins and things like that. And we did this like really amazing hike that took all day, but like it's sunlight 24 hours. So it didn't really matter what time you started as long as you were, had everything you needed. But we hiked from like where the lake was all the way to the top of the mountain, all the way around back down, and then hug the edge of the lake back to the cabin. And I'm athlete, so this is going to be a test, so I'm going to kind of deprive myself of the things that I need to keep going. This is not a survivalist idea. Like this is only like a dumb athlete idea. Like, how can I treat this dangerous situation as a training exercise, right? So like, so that's what I did. And by the time, because I was miserable when we got to the top, like again, brain fog, kind of feeling really depleted, and I collapsed on the way down. And props to people who were with me, like kind of covered me in this mosquito area that are scouting like ways to get me down the hill, because like we're in the middle of nowhere. Bears, like everything, it's Alaska, like it will kill you. And so lovingly, beautiful, but like it's the wild. It's legit the wild. And so I was just my whole body just shut down, and I'm just laying on the ground, and I'm very calm, not panicking, don't feel ill, just like just done. And my friend was like, so you've got a little food in your pack, like I had beef jerky, dried mango. And I was like, I'll have a little bit of dried mango. I'll eat a little bit, no, a little beef jerky, a little bit more beef jerky, a little bit more dried mango. And like eventually, I can't even describe the feeling, but it was just this sensation that I guess I don't know how long I was down, but I was like, I think I'm gonna sit up. And then there was a little voice inside my head that said, if you're gonna sit up, you're gonna stand up. And so I stood up and I just let out this, celebratory yell. Like I've never like that. It was all like coming back to life, that all the circuitry came back on, so having that kind of experience is so real, especially if you are a martial artist or in a kind of like physical training. You're really in tune with your physicality, getting to that point of like complete depletion, coming back from it. It's like a religious experience. Like it still informs me to this day, like to understand, oh wait, where am I? This is not track. This is not it's not a dojo. This is like where people live and die, where animals live, where other spirits live. Like, you should respect that you're a human being coming into this space, and not be cavalier about what it takes for you to get in and out of this space. And that was very, so I resonate with what you're talking about, like having beef jerky. Shout out to beef jerky. It's the best, like salt, salt, sugar, protein, just fat. So what can we expect from a horseman?
All work, no play. Love them and leave them.
I got one more for you. Competence. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, way better than mine.
Yeah. Competence. Meaning that like, especially as we approach the summer solstice, like yang qi should be proven. It should have demonstrated some discipline, commitment to routine, some level of maturity. And maturity shows both in a consideration of others, right? This is the yin intelligence that's informing yang. So we're not completely off track like wild pony over the course of like the dragon moon and the snake moon. Excuse me, there should be some development in terms of awareness of context, the need for other people to make alliances, etc. I mean, how do things get done? How do you get it done? You need to work with other people, need to be considerate, things need to be mutual, not taking advantage of others, willing to work on behalf of something larger than yourself, right? And how to understand a beginning, middle, and end of what it takes to get something done. Like that is competence, the sense of competence. And this is yang wisdom. So in the middle of winter, when yin is all green, right? Oh, it would be nice if we just lived on an island and just grew our own food, you know, whatever. Like all these like dreamy, idyllic scenarios. It's the little yang seed that goes, yeah, wait a minute, you know, like how do you actually get things done? You know, how do you actually realize a dream, take it from beginning to end and be able to deal with all the changes and permutations along the way? Because you never really, you start a dream, it never looks the same at the end, never. It always looks slightly different, you know, in some way or another. And so dealing with all that and developing all that is the development of maturity from this particular cosmology standpoint. And so you take that, once you get to this sense of feeling this competence, this is what you're going to take into the winter. Right? This is a kind of grace, nobility, you know, that yang has, this capacity for nobility. Like, I've proven myself, I know how to get things done. What's your question? To be a source of wisdom, you know, for the new ideas that come up in spring, middle of winter and spring, right? So here we're thinking about what we're cultivating and what we're going to be taking into the winter, because yes, it's true. Peak yang means it's over. You know, it's going to be on its way out. So how do you retire yang is going to be the next questions as we go forward. How do you get yang to abdicate to the beginning of yin? Because the biggest thing that I would say is that whatever you accomplish or achieve during this time, you're going to need to care for. Right? This is the introduction of yin. This is the idea of a legacy. You just don't like pop off one thing and then leave. You know, like if you accomplish something, then you have something. You have some kind of legacy to take care of. And that's why the image right now, especially as we go into summer solstice, is the young father, right? With a daughter. Not a son, but a daughter. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool because we think of the solstice as this peak yang, but to consider it, yeah, introduction of yin.
Yeah.
Complete 180 mind flip paradigm shift.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of the summer solstice as the beginning of summer, and that's what we call it here, because we are emphasizing yang at its peak, right? So this is peak, this is the beginning of summer, and that's like 2 weeks. So yes, this is the time to get things done, you know, to pull things across the finish line. But then the idea here is, you know, I use the idea of shooting your shot. Shoot your shot, like go for it. You know, absolutely, go for it. But understand that when you shoot your shot, it's not like a race, like of how much faster can you run than the other person. It's like playing billiards. So when you make that break, shoot the shot. You don't keep pushing the balls.
Do you know that shooting the shot is now youngsters are talking to a girl?
I've heard that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was new to me.
Really?
Yeah, I'm old.
I don't know if that's, I
Shoot
don't,
your shot?
that's been around.
Really?
That's been around.
Wow.
Yeah, no. That was around when I was around, like when I was
Wow.
younger.
I've never, maybe I've just been lovingly married for years. But no, I've never heard shoot. Anyway, not to interrupt. Shoot your shot.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like you know, at this point in time, you want to like Ming would say, you want to let it roll. You know, you've done all the pushing. It's already the momentum, like look around. Your momentum is it's activated. Things are in motion.
Wow. There you go.
You know, you don't need to push anymore. You just need to guide it. You need to like responsibly manage it
Mhm.
because you're also managing resources, which is yin, and preserving and conserving yin, and taking things across the finish line. This is the beginning. When we come to summer solstice, what I would say is this is the beginning of the completion season. How do we successfully conclude things, right? So that way we have some kind of treasure that we're taking into the winter. That's it. That's the whole idea. Like where we are now is like this celebration of peak yang. But we shouldn't be starting anything new. That's over. That's been over. Like we should be, you know, finding ways to see how we can take it to its conclusion. And if things feel complicated, right? How do we simplify to get it done? That's what you should be doing. And like, okay, well, this project is turned into 5 different projects. So what projects are we gonna say for next year? Because like now it's about some level of conservation. We should be initiating some level of conservation. Mostly because it's a resource management. It's a respective yin. And it's a recognition of this experience of what I call satisfaction. How do you find satisfaction? How do you know when you're done with something? This is a big problem in the States, in our culture. Big problem. We have no idea when we're done. We have no clue.
Yeah.
So we're just like on to the next thing, you know, okay, well, this is almost done, so I'm gonna start this other thing. And then this is almost done, I'm gonna start this other thing, and then you forgot the first one. And so we take multitasking to extremes because we make assumptions, you know, about what's of value in life, which is this constant growth, perpetual growth and expansion. So obviously it's depleting. And we just spend time trying to manage our depletion. My encouragement is that if people are interested in this material, right? If anybody's watching, there's usually 2 reasons. First reason is they've got tools, you know, that aren't serving them as well as they used to, and they're looking for like what Ming would call a new gun. I'm looking for a new gun. Or I'm looking for new bullets for my gun, you know, to justify my aggression. So give me the cosmology, give me the secret teaching, how am I gonna get there? You know, kind of thing. That's not what's valuable. Like empowerment, I'm not into it. Mostly because I think we're decadent. We have way too many things with justifiably a lifetime's worth of momentum already initiated for the most part. We don't need any help with yang. We got that. Like it's yin. We need help with. I think the second reason why most people are listening is because they're inherently dissatisfied. They are. I mean, it's just if you look around at the expectations of the culture, our culture that we're in, they are offensive, you know, because they're so mediocre in terms of what the expectations about being a human being is. very mediocre. So
Drink, food, sleep.
40-hour week job, maybe, you know, work hard, buy a house, never see your kids, but, you know, whatever, you know, it's all advantage seeking of some kind or another. It's constant advantage seeking. And so I'm a big fan of somebody like the Nap Ministry, you know, which is like, you've done enough, why don't you just take a nap?
Typical pig.
Well, this is very, well, and this person became public after Ming died. And every time I hear her download, I'm just like, we would love this. Like, you would just be so juiced about this, because that's what he was saying to pretty much everybody he was teaching. It's like, you need to go take a nap.
Yeah, I remember he slapped me in the face with a real simple ass phrase. He said, make sleep your kung fu. Because he knew how serious and dedicated I was to my training at that phase. He knew I wouldn't rest unless it was.
It was told, yeah, this is the next thing to practice, yeah.
It's like, practice. Rest.
Yeah. Yeah, so and in recognition of Juneteenth, which is today, this woman, I can't remember her name, that started the Nap Ministry, is speaking to primarily African Americans in America, saying like your history is such that you're born overworked. So let me give you the permission to go ahead and stop contributing to this grind, you know, let it go. Of course, that's a message that appeals to every human being, especially ones that are kind of subjected to this ridiculous thing, because
all naps.
Thank you for that. All naps matter. They sure do. Damn it. Yeah, because this culture generates ghosts. We produce ghosts by the handfuls.
So earlier, I just made mention of Ming slapping me. Clearly, little old Ming didn't slap big old me. But when you lay the hammer sometimes, you just make a concise statement. It lands like a mic drop, for instance. We call that a dark slap. So that's what just happened. This culture makes ghosts.
Yeah, we generate ghosts. Yeah. The whole bunch of them. Most of them, you know, like, I mean, we're a culture of ghosts and gods, right?
I know which one I am.
Right, of course. My first teacher used to say, you know, well, there's the one and there's the many, and like, and in a similar way, like this idea that you could be the one that rises to the top above everybody else. You claw your way and like, you know, don't let anybody take advantage of you. Blah, blah, blah.
Highlander.
Yeah, right. And so this like great struggle, you know, for power. Is this kind of God realm moving toward a God realm, Ashura, technically, but like on this way to this God realm. And then everybody else is the ghosts that they can only get the one thing. So, yeah, so if you're dissatisfied, yeah, congratulations, welcome to the human realm. Yeah, so I mean, so I'm really encouraging of this dissatisfaction. Like, be dissatisfied. Like, if you are dissatisfied, I would consider that to be like a human kind of reaction. Empowerment at this point, the pursuit of empowerment in this context is not human, it's ghostly. You know, it's a ghostly appetite. So that's why, you know, there's a lot of movement in the culture, which is great. There's a lot of, I mean, props to Gen Z, who's just like, I'm not interested in any of this.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so I mean, satisfaction.
I can't get no.
If we're looking at what brings you satisfaction, like you should actually pay attention to that. Like what every day in a horse moon, you should get to the end of your day and be like, okay, this is what I did. Mental list, make a check mark or whatever, a list, some sort of recognition, and find some level of satisfaction. By the time you get to the big hour, be like, okay, and then you can go to bed like that. You have to build these habits. It's not, the satisfaction isn't about like the big, well, I got my Oscar, like it's not the big celebration. It's really everyday kind of experience.
I need to back up a little bit. Did you just associate pig hour with bedtime? That's just so cute to me.
But
It was
pig
like
hour is bedtime.
pig in a blanket, dude.
It's pig is bedtime. That's why I'm a professional sleeper.
That's why my teapot is just.
He's like,
Well, I learned so much in this conversation. This is great.
yeah.
Okay.
And so, I mean, if people are interested and obsessed with empowerment during this moon, that's fine. My suggestion is, if you think that that's what satisfaction is, that it would just be an invitation to dig a little deeper.
Ooh.
That's all. Like, why do you want, X, Y, or Z to accomplish? Like, behind that, and then behind that is essentially what satisfaction is for you. And so this is like a really potent time to recover or even discover our appetite, like what our actual appetite is. And then make a connection back to spring, because remember, we had inspirations, we had dreams. We're not trying to do that right now. What we're trying to do is fulfill, or we're going for completion here. And so if you can find that in your daily experience, maybe, stages on the way to a path, however you want to frame it, it doesn't matter. It's all a conceptual journey. But the sensation of what's happening inside the body is like, really, how does it land? How does it actually feel? It can be a really potent time. Yeah. I mean, we are in a metal horse moon, so technically it's not a fire, it's fire season, but it is a metal horse. And that is problematic, it's early retirement. It's not metal horses, the metal horse chi is often confused, doesn't really know what it wants. We'll talk up a bunch of things, but not know how to get through it. It's a kind of mental traveler, mental traveler. So if you're confused and you're in this particular metal horse mode, if you're confused, don't really know what you want, haven't narrowed things down, you're kind of dispersed, my general advice would be just stop. Don't try. Like, if you can, make one thing the thing that you do. Simplify, but that was this whole getting into routine and setting down the ritual routine was like for the last couple of moons, right? It was basically for snake moon. There's a reason why we were saying like, you should get into the ritual, routine, and look for serendipity, was to provide like a situation where you were protected against this confusion. Right, so you're like, well, just follow through, and so you could just play through when it came to the metal horse moon. But if you weren't able to do that, then in that case, you might have a bit more like, I'm not sure what I want to do. I might do this, I might do that, I might do this. And in that case, we would say either pick one close to home and don't overextend yourself. Like, generally just let it go if you don't really know.
Can I ask a random question
And
about horses?
Yeah.
So we're currently in a metal horse. A horse's native element is fire. And so the way that I would look at the elements with regards to a particular animal, so fire, horse, in that regard, to me, would become a teenage bronco. Right? Wood horse would be the baby horse.
Yeah.
And then earth horse would be the mature, realized horse, whereas the metal horse is kind of George Clooney retired, right? But still, rideable. Winter horse is like, get some blue out of you.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great. Yeah.
But then if the native element of an animal is fire,
Mhm.
does that set the maturity progression different?
Uh-huh.
Are you getting my logic?
Yeah. In some ways, yes, but in other ways, you were spot on. I mean, because the wood horse is like a prancing pony, right? But there's a reason why the wood horse prefers to have things very straightforward, right? Not trying to go off on a lot of tangents.
Yeah.
Because the vulnerability, the inspiration of that vulnerability wants to create movement, and that's movement toward fire. So wood is generating fire. Right. So having a track to run to develop yourself as a wood horse, very, very good. Right. So if they have a straight track that they can run back and forth, then they can develop skill sets, right? Which is what they want to do. Because otherwise life is confusing. Too many choices. Don't feel as quite as empowered as a fire horse, right? So I gotta simplify my options. Whereas a fire horse isn't really thinking at all. It's just doing, constantly, so you have to, especially with a fire horse, you have to really look at their chart to kind of see what hope they have for developing parameters to their action. Otherwise, if they have like significant haunting, and because they have very vigorous constitutions, they can spend their life in addiction. Because the danger with horses is that they're open-ended. If you give them an open-ended task, they will kill themselves to try to complete it. Because they're so action-oriented. They're not coming with boundaries to set. Earth horses, we always talk about, not dragons. But they feel like, very spacious and mature. Like, I can handle that. Oh, okay, definitely. And so they're, loading up because they're so strong. They're loading up way too much. And when you get to a metal horse, it's just way more iffy, because the metal horse is doing what the other four horses don't do, which is think. And a lot. They think a lot, so they are producing, like mental traveling, so that they're not going to go to Rome, but they're going to think about Rome and talk about Rome and imagine Rome and see movies about Rome, and that's how they travel. But if they think that they're going to be a world traveler, it's probably not a great idea. They're going to run into trouble because they're not thinking it all the way through. Because they're thinking a lot, but they're not good at it. Right? They're not great planners.
Like education versus street smart or something.
Yeah, well, think about the diametric rats. Rats are the diametric of horses. They plan everything out. So you can look at sort of something like a metal horse and see clues of how they might behave by looking at their diametric. And in that case, like a rat's very good at planning and step-by-step process, and the metal horse will try to do that, but not do that well.
So what about the water?
The best image of a water horse that I really enjoy is in hexagram 2 of the Joey. Because it talks about the mare wandering in the wilderness and is essentially reimagining all of creation and has second thoughts.
It's romantic.
So, well, I mean, it's a very poetic image of this great capacity for ment and generation that comes out of a water horse, which is this infinite capacity. But is pretty reluctant to do any of that. And so there's wisdom, in that, and this kind of great capacity for self-sacrifice. It's technically called the war horse. So it means it's willing to put itself in harm's way to achieve what needs to be done to be given like a feeling of purpose. I mean, water is the element of motion, purpose. And so a water horse can be incredibly, I mean, over the top, kind of generous, like ox level.
I'm
Kind
getting
of
Eeyore
generous.
vibes, like Eeyore, like.
Very much so, yeah. Just like not quite as bad as like a water ox.
Mhm.
And water ox is basically Eeyore.
Not quite a movie.
Yeah, but if they don't have anything to do, they can get pretty damn low. But in the case of a metal horse, they're very active. But they do better as a mental traveler
Okay.
than an actual one.
So an animal's native element then doesn't necessarily speak to where it is in a progression of its maturity, so to speak. It's just where they're kind of at their peak expression.
Yeah, it's a native expression. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, whenever I do modifications or clients talking about character, and even talking about this moon, we're talking about the metal horse right now, but when we started the conversation, we're talking about fire because that is the season that we're in. It's not like the modification of metal comes last, right? So you have to talk about, understand like what it means to be in the fifth moon, which is the fire horse moon, technically. But if you were looking at, so I guess, yeah, you would have to look at the fire element. You look at the fire element to understand horse, and you look at the fire element to understand the snake. Just two different flavors, yin and yang, of like what fire is. In fire, in the case of the horse, is consumptive. It's the grass fire. It's the taking of resources and transforming them. And it's this process that isn't double checking. So that's the reason why you need to be very well prepared when you get to this place. So that way you're giving the horse some kind of parameters to operate in so that they can actually demonstrate themselves instead of just being kind of wild and crazy and running around the field and not really doing anything, right? Not really bringing anything home, not really generating something that can be assimilated and stored or be used to inspire. The one thing I can say about the the metal horse is even though they're kind of a mental traveler, they have much greater capacity for acuity, like making things clear, and then to be re-inspired. So if we simplify like what we're interested in, say like, well, I come into this moon, I have like 5 things, but like, I think I'm just gonna do 2, like if you're able to kind of do that and like downshift a little bit, very wise. You have some sense of your resources and what you're actually capable of. Very wise to do right now as you're going into the solstice, because then you get to actually really bring a couple things home instead of having like half a dozen half-ass finished projects that you'll forget about in the winter. Right?
It's a big deal in our culture.
Yeah. I'm so busy. I don't have time. I'm just so busy.
Yeah, there's a saying in traditional martial arts. They say you learn 18 weapons, you learn 18 pieces of shit. Right? You learn 1 weapon. Oh, okay, great. Form. You learn 18.
Right. Yeah.
But classically, like a system is willing to have 18 weapons.
Right.
Traditional classic.
Mm-hmm.
Complete system. But
yeah, do one thing and do it really well. Then you have the capacity to develop acuity, meaning that like I finally know what I'm doing. I can demonstrate my competence. I can demonstrate my competency in this, and then thereby the sort of like real flowering of yang is to be re-inspired. Like I want to keep doing this, like I feel like my place in the world. Like I feel like I belong here. I feel connected, and then you want that for other people. You do that too? Like, let's talk, or like, what are you passionate? So much, especially in this culture, like our passions, everybody needs to have some. And first of all, like everybody needs to be passionate about something, like very, very passionate. The more things you're passionate about, the more involved you are. It's a sign, it's a badge, like how passionate can you be? But it's essentially a license for aggression. That's what we conceive of passion as being, what they really, how they really function. Whereas someone who's developed themselves and developed inspiration, they're just awake in what they do. There's a kind of like harmony, and that's where we're going. Is this place of harmony in the system? If we can find this place of satisfaction, and then acuity in what we're doing, and then finding our way back to being re-inspired. This is the yin making a return. This is yin being reborn inside, right? Is feeling that sense of re-inspiration and belonging, which makes us what? Gentle, awake, observant, respectful, considerate. All those like yin wisdom kind of things, while at the same time knowing how to do things. So this is the world of the grandfather, of the world of the retiring young, who becomes like a consultant for people who don't know. I'm feeling very confused. Have some tea, sit down. Like, let me tell you how it goes. And like, what does this elderly young, someone who's elder in training, say, right? But they want to, what do they want? Do they want more achievement? Not really. They have yin to care for. They have accomplished yin. They have something to care for. They want the world to be safe. So that means that the way they engage the world is to encourage safety. It's not just like, I'm protecting my daughter. You get close, I'm going to kill you. Like, there's a little bit of that, but at the same time, it's also like, what can we do collectively? How do we get things done in such a way that someone like my daughter can be safe? Right? How can all daughters be safe? So this is the mature young. This is mature young. That is the power of mature young. Is this like deeply informed by yin intelligence and applying in a way to get things done.
The other side of
toxic masculinity is young out of control. It's the never being given a direction, a reason, to apply and discover purpose.
Well, how about this? Let's segue to good luck, bad luck.
Oh yeah. Good luck, bad luck, who knows?
Start with horses.
Well, I go through the trine. I'll go through the trine of horse, right? So, because first of all, it teaches everybody that things are coming in trines. It's a trine.
So the trine would be horse, tiger, dog.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think in answering the question of like good luck, bad luck, who knows, thought about this, like instead of going, oh, or start a rat and go to pig, like all these things interrelate. So when we're talking about horses, we can start in the horse trine, and horse shares the trine. It's the active, it's different names for these things, but like the trine of horse, dog, and tiger exist in this kind of motion trine, like, because they're all sort of defined by a level of involvement, action, moving. And horses do very well in this mode. Like they're, if they know how to prioritize. If a horse should, at this point, know how to prioritize. The younger horses, maybe not so much, but I think younger horses are like water horses anyway, so they're kind of like whatever, like not necessarily, maybe they're overdoing it, but at any rate, like generally horses would do very well if they know how to prioritize. Tigers, well, I know a tiger that's on vacation right now, and that's a good idea for tigers. They should get out of town and just, step off the gas. Do something to kind of take themselves out of their comfort zone a little bit, which they like to do. Generally, go on a little adventure, not too far, but like someplace where you not completely open-ended, but like someplace where you can do something that has no like great purpose. Just like go someplace where nobody knows what you do and you can just relax. That would be my suggestion for tigers. And dogs, this is a good moon for dogs just generally. And in a year where dogs should kind of watch themselves, but I would consider the dogs to stay close to home and stay close to routine. So that trine does fairly well. If we talk about the domestic trine, which is
Rabbit, goat, pig.
That's right. Rabbits, goats, and pigs, all of which have some risk in any horseman of getting trampled.
And this is called the domestic trine.
The domestic trine.
What was the last trine called?
I just call it like the active trine. I think there's some. Not figured out what the trines are. Like there's one that's fixed. They're fixed. We'll get to that one next. But like, so the domestic trine, they have some difficulties because sort of similar to the snake moon, where things just kind of come out of left field. Things are a little bit more straightforward, right? Okay, there's a step-by-step action here, that I can follow this, but there's still some capacity for things out of left field, when it comes to a horseman. So like dogs, most of the domestics, rabbits, goats, and pigs should kind of stay close to home in routine. But if they lower their list of concerns, if they actually take naps and take care of the nourished yin, essentially, then they can do well. But they have to kind of lower their expectations. All of them lower expectations, especially in a metal horse moon, because you're going to imagine you can do a lot more than you actually can. Maybe because it's a wood dragon year, and you think, oh, we can totally like retile the bathroom and change the and change the electrical system and completely re-roof the house. Like
sounds like what's going on.
It's gonna be tough, boy. Like it's gonna take longer than you think. So you may be like deeply inspired because you're in a wood dragon year, but if you didn't establish a kind of routine to uphold that inspiration in the snake moon, then this is where things kind of get cut back, right? This is where you get a little bit disappointed. Good, it's good to be disappointed, because then you're actually scaling back to what you can actually do. So all of those three may in some way engage in that kind of realization to some degree. And then fixed.
The dragon, monkey.
That's different. A celestial, we'll call it the celestial.
Oh yeah. Dragon, monkey, rat.
Dragon, monkey, rat. Dragons are good. I mean, they're already, when they get to peak young, I think for a lot of dragons, they're already kind of like, yeah, I already know what's coming. So
we're expecting our dragon.
It's kind of like they already did their homework, like long before it needed to be turned in, like so they're just turning in their homework this moment, and not putting too much of a worry on the busy work kind of thing. Dragons aren't busy work kind of people. In the horse is sort of, for a dragon, horses appear anxious. And they're not, but for a dragon, they look anxious because they're constantly moving. And so dragons, they don't buy into that. Rats obviously need to watch their step, you know, and like not really stay close on. This is not the best moon for them through this year. There's a horse to get trampled.
Rats, yeah,
Yeah, or overwhelmed, you know,
I could see that.
very overwhelmed, too much going on, even if they're not actually receiving all the things, being in the environment where things are not progressing in a step-by-step fashion stresses them out, right? So if no one's asking them to do more, but when everybody else is doing more, it makes them nervous. You know, you're like, I don't keep everybody else is doing more. How do I do more? You know, so it's you might say it's like all in their mind, but it's a chi relationship. They're just anxious right now, and that's okay. That's a survival mechanism for them to be anxious. Why is it so light out? You know, like they should be resting or like taking time at the beach or something, staying out of the wind.
Okay.
Monkeys.
Hey.
Multitasker. Yeah. So multitasking, go for it. Sure.
I'm doing good with that right now.
Okay.
Like I'm
Same.
knocking projects out and I'm not taking on new ones. And I'm making sure that I'm doing stuff well.
Good. So you don't have to go back
Yeah.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be yeah. Monkeys can be wasteful. As we know, you know, and like for them it doesn't feel wasteful. They're just doing stuff. But if they can feel the sense of completion in what they do, kind of tie it off, set it down, not have to look at it again. You know, it takes less out of their field, and that's good. Not all monkeys are going to be good at this. Metal monkeys probably safer in this moon because you'd have to look at the elemental configurations and the in life experience and maturity. Like I know a water monkey right now that's like crazy overwhelmed, and like that's like doing too much, you know. Or what they are doing is triggering in some way. Whatever. So, but with metal monkeys being in a metal horse moon, it'd be easier, more encouraged to kind of slow down and like perfect what I'm doing. You know, like actually, you know, before I send that off, let me just look at that email one more time. Make sure that I'm not offending anybody. Like, how do I word these things?
It's funny you say that because in my mind I'm thinking like maybe even like pray.
Yeah. Some kind of sanctification, you know, of like what I'm doing, you know, having a feeling of like how other people perceive me in my action. You know, monkeys are very aware of these things. They come across like palm, you know, like that kind of thing, but it also could be like this kind of game playing. Okay, to be considered, or whatever, you know, like whatever the word is they want to put on it in terms of how am I interacting with other people, how I'm perceiving, what are the ways this thing can be tweaked. It can be a really thoughtful time if they're not generally something. And in terms of the fixed tribe.
And this is our rooster snake. Past the
So good, so good.
And what makes these fixed? I get snake and ox. And a rooster.
Yeah. They're, I mean, obviously very different in the way that they're fixed. You know, the ox is this kind of singular, monotone, steady business that is very favored by like Confucians and is like indicative of the middle of winter, like step by step, calling on ancestral sort of support, this kind of yin level momentum, very, very strong, can't shake it. So there's a kind of fixed quality to it. The snake, the level of like the kind of fixed chi quality to a snake is like you don't really know what's going on. So can't say for sure. It's it's almost like invisible, you know, and its lack of visibility is a kind of fix of quality.
Yeah.
Its lack of obviousness. And with rooster, it's kind of the opposite because they like things to be obvious and clear. It's like very right angle. Yeah. There is no gray area for roosters. Like they're very, it is binary, black and white, you know. That gray business, you get that out of here. You know, like come back when it's black or white. It obviously needs more work to be done. Like that's all gray is just, you know, an opportunity for further clarification. So like
love you.
that's a rooster for you. Like, that's where, and we need that, you know, we need that. The other 11 earthly branches need that. They need somebody who's calling out everybody on the bullshit.
It's always nicer when someone else tells me.
Oh, man. Roosters.
Okay, so those are our 4
Fixed. Yeah, so how they do,
Mhm.
like, oxen, they don't notice. They're just, steady as they go. You know, with ox, this multitasking business is short-lived
Yeah,
for the most
yeah.
part. I mean, they're just not into it, you know, because they're very routine in a certain way. They may use their strength to kind of overextend themselves in some ways, occasionally, but it doesn't really harm them. You know? Snakes are very perfectly capable of disappearing into this whole business. You know, like they have like a million different things going on, they just disappear into the doing. So they're not bothered by this at all, by the whole horse business. Not really bothered by it at all. Like they're probably more annoyed with everybody else being too excited. That's all. When the rooster, you know, they're not jugglers. They don't juggle. I mean, like they're not really good at wanting to like constantly be multitasking. They like kind of step-by-step process for the most part. So this is another opportunity for, if you can't clarify something, good to let it go. That's what I would say to the roosters. If you can't clarify the way in which, if you can't demonstrate your competency to complete something, then don't let your ego get the better of you. Just be like, okay with like, I don't know. You don't have to tell anybody. You can just like, you can just let it go.
The smartest people I know will say, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not what roosters are comfortable with. They're not comfortable with that at all. Like they want to come to conclusions. So if you needed to make a temporary conclusion, it's totally fine. But my recommendation to roosters and a horse moon is don't get caught in an open-ended situation where you can become depleted. It's very important to know your limitations. And so if this part of yang chi's maturity is to be able to look into a situation for its capacity to be fulfilled, right? So if I'm looking at a project, I'm like, okay, so we need to get this done in 4 months. Like, do we have the, you know, so the roosters are going to be like with the blueprints. I don't think that's going to work. You know, like they are like picking apart. So this, I remember at the beginning of the year, I said that roosters were going to be basically shredding everybody else's dreams. This is the moon you do that. This is the moon where you're like, that's not going to work, and that's not going to work, and yes, we can do these things, and we should do them now, and yeah, can we do it tomorrow? They can be like that. It's just it's just what their contribution is. It's not a judgment. You know, it's just, I mean, they do judge, but like it is that's
Quality control.
We need that. We need that. Otherwise, we'd be spinning out in every direction. Maybe in this particular room, not getting anything done. Whereas the rooster is like, well, if we only have $400, we can only do these 2 things. And like, so you want the roosters in charge of the purse in the middle of summer, so that things don't get overextended into new projects, into new irons in the fire, that kind of thing. So, yeah, quality control, foreman, whole shot, like they are, I'd say let them
Wow.
be in charge.
That's Foreman, the rooster in my life has literally used that
The foreman, yeah, but, yeah.
word.
So I'm gonna see you when?
Yeah.
Okay, August 12th, okay, and you're gonna be here for how long?
So then, those out of the way,
That's all 12.
what would you do?
Oh. In the context of a wood dragging year, yeah.
Metal Horseman,
No, listen,
what's the name doing?
what do you think?
Well, you know, I like how we started today with that non-conceptual bit. You know, and I also like this idea of, yes, solstice is peak yang, but it's also the introduction of yin. And so I kind of get this idea of
Beginning of the end.
beginning of doing nothing and kind of coasting and
Uh-huh.
letting momentum. So
Yeah,
I kind of see him kind of resting, maybe closing his doors a bit.
yeah, it's funny, and I think about like, because the snake moon came around, I know for me, I was like, I don't feel capable of seeing clients, like, it's just felt kind of disoriented. And then the horse moon, I've just been, like most people, we're sort of overextended and kind of navigating how much you have on the plate, and how things kind of intensify. And I can imagine that what Ming would be encouraging, doing for himself, and encouraging for us, would have a lot, I think, to do with what we did last month. So if we were able to set down what was important for us in terms of a practice, then it's more or less following through. Like, I think that some of what's available in the horse moon is just follow through. You had this inspiration, you've been cultivating for weeks, you know, like, so now you're at this point where if you see a finish line, finish, we get it done. But I agree with you, you know, there would be like pretty gaps, hiatus, you know, disappearing, and just like enjoying mountain spaces, getting away from the coast. Because wind is a big deal. It's going to start becoming an even bigger deal as we move into fall. The next 6 weeks, right? So we have 6 weeks, you know, particularly these next 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks of the fifth moon are.
That's why you're wearing a scarf today.
The last 2 weeks of this fifth moon are like the prime real estate, you know, for really demonstrating competence and either getting things across the finish line or pushing for that process, you know, making significant steps in that process, setting down the plan, and have some kind of timeline for how things conclude, you know, because then the month after that is like pretty active decline, you know, in terms of yang. So if we don't participate with that, you know, if we're just like continuing to push forward, then we're cultivating a sort of atmosphere that makes for dog days of August, you know, toxic yang, chi, and we're not allowing it to retire, you know, in our lives. Then we're sort of perpetuating this environmental condition where winds become, especially in wood dragging here, where it's just all about wind, pernicious. Like from this point on, the wind starts to become increasingly pernicious.
So might even mean California forest fires.
Yep. I mean, we're experiencing, very interestingly, you know, this heat dome business, and it's gonna get peak Friday, Saturday, which is the beginning of the solstice. It's like, people are not making this connection. Just saying, like this is the, and not to get too scary, but like, deep in yin season in the winter is ghosts, ghosts and ancestors. And at the peak yang season, is demons. Like this is where the demonic actually comes through.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Thank you for that. Yeah, so this is the demon time.
this is demon time.
Ghost time. This is also 5 poison time, right? So this is like snake, centipede, lizard, toad.
Yeah, spider. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's there's definitely certain days in the calendar. We just had one on Sunday where you should like watch your step if you're out in any kind of wilderness, because you're not the only one there. Like, the roots of the tradition and cosmology and the feng shui are deeply animistic, right? So the Taoist tradition is very aware of like how many other realms of being there are, like 64,000, right? So it's like more than you can count is what that means. Like it's just a lot. So you should pay attention to feng shui. This is the Ling Shui practice. Right? This is the paying attention and being ritual, place of ritual in feng shui. What to do, where to go, and when. This kind of constantly in engagement. So this wind business, perniciousness. It's just this tradition is not big on going to the beach and lying in the sun, but if you go out, it's lightweight, it doesn't take much. Just make sure that you're covering yourself up. Because what the demonic means, to clarify, what the demonic means, it means a loss of relatedness. Right? When you become belligerent, what happens when the young season of fire is forcefulness? That's what that is. It has one trick: initiate, like push, bring things to completion, fulfillment. And that completion and fulfillment means, if you're using it maturely, means to ripen, bring things to fullness. But what's on the other side of ripen?
Rot.
Death, destruction. So that's always been the tension in the dialogue, where it's like we're not paying attention to, because we're very fixated on the capacity of yang to be forceful, to affect movement, change, right? But this cosmology is looking at the context of that occurrence. If we're focusing on forcefulness, then there's risks that come with that. And one of those risks is to lose our sense of relatedness. So when forcefulness is forceful just for the sake of forcefulness, the word for that is tyranny. It is this like deep belligerence that dehumanizes other people, that exploits humans and resources to the point of complete depletion, where there's no coming back. So this is demonic. this is a dis-ease, right? When we lose our relatedness in our action, lose our awareness of the context of how our forcefulness affects other people, what it's in service to, what a legacy might be. So we circle back on some indigenous teachings, like 7 generations teaching, that whatever I'm doing should be, I should consider the next 7 generations in every action that I take. Like, so there's so many teachings like this, across all over the world, taking a context and like, well, so when we lose that sense of relatedness, this is what the Chinese would call demonic, where it's just all day, every day, smashing your head against vertebrae. Like that's what demonic means. Right?
And on that note.
Yeah, so. You're welcome, America. Check for demons in the basement. You probably have some. Or like, yeah, or underneath your car.
Yeah, so open the windows,
Yeah.
clean the clutter, clap in the corners.
Yep, but yeah, even some fireworks, that'd be good, yeah, safely.
4th of July.
4th of July,
There's a reason why our culture does this.
yeah, when is that day? It's a Thursday. I wanna know.
He's consulting the oracle. Right?
Yeah, yeah, ooh, it's a Leo. That could be really powerful, and it's a shut day too, if you don't do much and you just set up some sparklers and stuff. It's good to chase away the spirit.
Shout out sparklers. Hey, shout out this tea that's
It's been great. You see me talking like so much, that's this tea. Yeah, we're on to another thing.
Well.
Hey.
Next time.